certainly into a big week of baseball here at Camden Yards. Luke Jones will be on the scene covering all things there. And, of course, the WNST text service keeping you abreast of everything that's going on with cuts on the Ravens and additions to the Orioles and hopefully better baseball as the weekend gets here. Meantime, Ravens headed down to New Orleans. This guy is a part of the Saints organization at NewOrleansSaints.com. He is their senior writer. He is John DeShazier, and we welcome him in. And you can follow him, of course, at Saints.com as well as out on Twitter. Welcome. I hear rumblings out of New Orleans that Drew Brees might play in this fourth preseason game. True, John?
Well, I think there's a lot more than rumblings. Coach Payton said this morning that pretty much his starters would go. He anticipates the first quarter, and that includes Drew Brees. So I guess it depends on how many snaps they get, how much work they want to really see out of those guys. But, yeah, he indicated this morning that those guys would play. They've been a little bit disappointed in not just the preseason results, but they hadn't had the clean look they wanted offensively. And defensively, they probably struggled and stepped back a little bit. Didn't step back a little bit, stepped back a lot against Pittsburgh in the last preseason game. And so I think he wants to get his frontline guys out there to at least exit the preseason with a better taste in their mouth.
Well, and I would say for this offense and what they're trying to do, some of it's even new for Drew Brees at this point, right? Having everyone on the same page as a quarterback that's been in this system for 10 years, it takes some time, and clearly it hasn't worked thus far.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to be with the way they've played over the past 10, 11 years. We've gotten a little bit spoiled, and we just thought everything would fall into a place and all the stars would align, and you sub out this piece for that piece, and the train would keep moving smoothly. And a lot of these guys have said some things. Players have said this, and it sounded just like cliche-ish, but it's true. You can't base present success on past success. You've got to earn it every year, and so they're having a little bit of a difficult time kind of putting all the pieces together, figuring out which pieces of the puzzle go where. Right guard, Andrews Pete, who was drafted to play right tackle, is probably going to be moving to left guard now. And the guys who were battling for the left guard position, Tim Lolito and Senio Clemente, now both of those guys are going to move over to the right side and battle for the starting right guard position. So, these are moving chess pieces. It's a fluid situation, and they're trying to develop that needed chemistry, especially on the offensive line. So those are the guys who are going to have to protect Drew Brees.
John DeShazier joining us here from NewOrleansSaints.com. You can also follow him out on Twitter, and that's spelled DeShazier, also with the Pelicans radio network. So I'll talk a little basketball with you later on in that case. But from the football perspective, the offensive line's been a problem, and also at the tight end position with Graham and now Ben Watson. Look, we got to know Ben Watson here. It didn't even take him getting onto the field to find his value. Incredible injury on Saturday, and Harbaugh kind of went nuts after the game. But I looked at Ben Watson leaving there, and now I see the Saints coming in, and I'm thinking, now why didn't the Saints want Ben Watson on their team this year?
Well, I mean, I think, one, it became a cost situation. I mean, Ben, for all, as much as we love him, he's 35 years old. And so how much do you want to invest in a player, with that mileage on him? And they had an opportunity to go and get Kobe Fleener from Indianapolis. You're talking about a younger version, a guy who's a pass catcher, and to be able to have him in this offense for several more years. So I think the Saints felt like, from a standpoint of, economics, you spend more, but you get a younger player, and, down the road, that contract is going to be of value. Now, but again, Kobe Fleener has just initiated himself into this offense, so he's not as fluid with Drew Brees, and the chemistry isn't quite there as they would like. We saw some indications of it coming along in the last preseason game against Pittsburgh, but it still isn't quite there yet. It takes a while to build that thing up. So, obviously Drew Brees had a great rapport with Jimmy Graham. He had a very good rapport with Benjamin Watson last year. Last year, Ben Watson has the year of his career, I think, at the age of 34. So it tells you what the Saints value in that position. But Ben Watson was a rare breed. He's a rare guy who can block as well as, run routes. So, he's one of those dual threat tight ends. Right now, Kobe Fleener has not been that, and admittedly has not blocked as well as he wants to. But he's going to be a guy who's going to be critical to what the Saints want to do offensively, because that tight end position is so critical to what they do.
John, a couple weeks out on this thing, make a case for the homestead and for packing the team up and taking them 1,500 miles away to practice up in the foothills. I've seen the video. It looks lovely. It looks like everyone's having a nice time there. For the Ravens, they've moved from Westminster back to their facility because their facility really is the best place for them to prepare for football. I know in New Orleans, given the heat and the humidity, and look, I've been down there for this trip before Katrina. I know how hot and sticky and awful it can be in New Orleans in the summertime. There's no doubt about that, but make a case that it really does make them a better football team. I'm assuming you see all the ins and outs of what goes on there, and you know the operation and how difficult it is to move a football operation into sort of a non-football environment.
Well, I think you make them better because, one, you isolate them, and I think most coaches, especially old school coaches, Sean Payton is from the Bill Parcells tree, so they believe in that isolation. They like the isolation. But as much as anything, weather-wise, you can simply get more work done. Frankly, in New Orleans or here in the Gulf South, if you're doing training camp here, you'll spend half the day rehydrating guys and getting guys IVs and trying to get them back on their feet, as opposed to actually getting work done. So I think up at the Greenbrier in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, weather-wise and being able to get the actual work done, you get a lot more accomplished from that standpoint. And I know fans would like to have them here, and the Saints have a state-of-the-art practice facility, and everything is great around here. But from the standpoint of actually getting the work done, they used to have training camp in Jackson, Mississippi, one of the hottest places on earth as far as I'm concerned, and Thibodaux, Louisiana, and Hammond, Louisiana. And when you had those, now granted, those practices were different from a standpoint of the collective bargaining agreement allowed those, hard two-a-days, full pads, both practices, and that isn't allowed anymore. But when you want to go hard, even now, when they don't go as hard in two practices as they used to and there's not as much contact allowed, you still can get more work done because you have fewer guys laying on the table taking an IV at the practice.
How's our boy Donnell Ellerbe doing?
Donnell Ellerbe is some kind of player, man, when he's healthy. And I think you guys know that. When he's on the field, he's an impact guy. Now, the Saints have had some difficulty keeping him on the field. He came to the Saints, actually working off an injury from Miami. So, I think that affected him some last season. But I think 6-7 games he was on the field last year, you could see the difference when he's out there. He's a guy who can cover. He's a guy who can make some noise when he rushes the passer. And he's just a guy who's extremely athletic and fast. So the Saints have taken, great pains to keep him healthy throughout this off season and through this training camp and through preseason. And so far it's worked. I mean, he's a guy who you want him on the field during the regular season. If they can get the 15 games out of Donnell Ellerbe, this defense is going to be significantly better because he's one of those guys who can make that kind of an impact.
John DeShazier joining us here from Saints.com. You can check out his work as well as that on Twitter. Last thing for you, our organization has struggled here, and we see it in training camp with draft picks who have underperformed, who don't become starters, higher draft picks, seconds and thirds that aren't working out. Hell, first-round pick in Matt Elam hasn't worked out so great, had a hard time getting Perryman to the field. He might be running around on Thursday night for the first time in a year and a half. And this year, the Saints, the same problem with Sheldon Rankins. It's very, very difficult to improve when you don't get your best draft picks on the field and playing at that kind of level.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, because you got to replenish, the crops somehow or another, and the best way to do it and the easiest way to do it is through the draft. And Sheldon Rankins, broke his fibula in a practice in a goal line drill at practice, and so that hurts this defense because Sheldon Rankins was a starter at the time. And I mean, he's been a guy who's made a significant impact even as a rookie. You could see, the development and the gains he had made. So not having him removes a guy from that defensive tackle rotation. And all of a sudden, you still have some quality guys in Tyler Davidson and John Jenkins and Nick Fairley, but it's not quite the quality of depth that you want because Sheldon Rankins isn't out there. So when you don't have your picks out there, it always hurts. Now, the Saints feel like they've picked up a couple of bonus picks actually in the rookie free agent class. They've got a couple of guys from that rookie free agent class who are going to play, and they're going to play a lot in the secondary. But again, there's a reason you take Sheldon Rankins at number 13 overall in the first round. There's a reason he's, listed as a starter at defensive tackle. There's a reason, he was playing as well as he is, and that's because he's a pretty good player. And to not have him, it really hurts you at defensive tackle.
John, enjoy the game on Thursday night. I know the Saints are looking to learn a lot. I mean, it's going to be a different kind of game than maybe the Ravens are accustomed to, just given who's going to be on the field for the Saints, because this is, first time in 10 years, starters are going to start, and it is a different kind of game than maybe we even saw it on the schedule to think it's backups and backups. It's going to be a little different on your side.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there's still going to be some time for the backups to make their impact for the Saints. But, yes, from what we hear from Coach Payton this morning, his starters are going to play. And I think that's, as much as anything, again, that's the optics, and that's the, you want a good inner feeling as you leave the preseason. And so far, the offense has struggled, it's sputtered, it has not played well, and I think he just wants to have a nice, decent, clean showing by that offense, that first-team offense, before he goes off into the regular season.
Yeah, and the Saints open against the Raiders at home, off to the Giants, Falcons, and Chargers during the month of September. John, great having you on, man. I appreciate the visit. We'll come check you out at Saints.com as well as at John DeShazier out on Twitter, and I'll spell that for everybody. John, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. Anytime.
Appreciate you. There he goes, John DeShazier. You can follow him. That's DeShazier, senior writer at NewOrleansSaints.com. Also with the New Orleans Pelicans radio analyst as well, so maybe some NBA from him during the regular season as well. You can find me, Nasty at WNST.net. I am available for criticism, praise, tomato throwing, whatever you have for me. Also out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and anywhere else the internet is served. I'll be over in Germany all weekend with my wife, meeting the guy who has saved her life. We're welcoming him to Baltimore in November, throwing a birthday party for him on November 12th. So if you want to meet him, feel free to do so. And of course, everywhere we go, you go. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault's there. Anytime you want to listen live, listen to something that you missed, see something out on our website, just download it, podcast it, listen when you want, where you want, how you want. It's the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault at WNST.net. Every morning, our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. That is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. Last but never least is the breaking news service. That's the best thing we do around here at WNST, and it's free, it's easy. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and I promise it'll be going off a lot this week with the Orioles roster going up, the Ravens roster getting cuts. Lots of activity for the Labor Day weekend, and you can follow our journey over to Germany on our Facebook and Facebook Live, and we also stream at YouTube on our WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.